Welcome, everybody. We're going through the book of Revelation. We were just talking about what does the Bible study look like for the next 7 weeks or so, and it sounds like we'll be taking a break from this one because I will be gone for 7 weeks, and so I kind of put some calls out there for people that would want to do it, and it's like, it's fine. There are other Bible studies. If you would like to take this time and do one out of your house or meet here with some people, feel free.
I don't think
Like that. That's over there. I know the Zoom is kind of a difficult thing to do, but yeah. So we'll take a break on the Revelation, and all of my band has one on Wednesdays. If one of you guys want to create one on another day, feel free. Feel free. Like that's. But we'll start back on this. Maybe the first week I'm back. So I think it's the 7th of July. It's a Sunday. I am not preaching that week. That's my last week where I'm not preaching, but I will be back in the office that next Tuesday. So like so I basically come back that week. I fly in on an airplane at 1 a.m. in the morning that Sunday. So yeah. So I'm not. Yeah, you expect me to come by? That's sweet of you. That's nice. Like that brings a tear to my eye. Yeah. And so we won't be doing Bible study for the pastor Bible study for 7 weeks.
On the 10th?
Yeah, the 10th. So there's a good chance we'll have it on the 10th. Be kind of looking out for that. What that'll take is just communication during the service. And so July 10th. Yeah. It should come back then. I'll be in the office that week. So, and July 4th is Thursday, right? Is that when July 4th is?
It's Friday.
Oh, it's a Friday. Okay. Yeah. So
we're going to have study though on the 22nd and the 29th of May.
No. I'm done after this. I've had enough.
You're not leaving till the 30th though, right?
No, this is my last weekend. Memorial Day weekend is next week. And so I'm not preaching Memorial Day weekend.
So this is the last Thursday.
Last Thursday until July. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I'll be gone 7 weeks.
Memorial Day is the 26th of May.
Do what?
Memorial Day is the 26th of May.
Yeah.
That means the 25th is Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm gone that Sunday.
I'm gone that Sunday, Memorial Day weekend.
But today's the 15th.
Yeah, the 18th is this Sunday. I'm preaching this Sunday.
Okay,
this
so
will
then
be
you're
my
not
last
going to teach on the 22nd.
No.
Oh,
I'll be gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think she's got it figured out now.
Yeah, did you get
Confused.
Just update the church calendar.
So it's all the other peripheral things. I was trying to make it as easy as possible with saying the two high holidays, Memorial Day through July 4th and all that stuff. So that'll be pretty easy. Yesterday I performed the funeral for Mary Bodie at Trinity in Fort Pierce, and I talked with them for a while. There's still just a lot of frustration and hurt in that congregation right now about how everything has gone down, and so it's Fort Pierce. Yeah, the pastor resigned kind of suddenly back in December, like that, just all of a sudden, and so I was just but and we'll say the same thing about this place too. It's sometimes we get frustrated with stuff, and like we can see that frustration in health outcomes. We can see that frustration in relationships, and there's a lot of frustration what's going on at that church right now. And And we convince ourselves that we just need to work hard to try to save it. And you can't save it. That's Jesus' job. You can work hard, you know, you can do all those things, but sometimes we're like, oh, I need to save it, and we'll burn ourselves out. And all of those things. You can't, this is how we talk inside the pastor community, because a lot of pastors go into churches that are struggling, and they'll just work into overdrive trying to save it, right? Like all that stuff. And so I just told them, you can't save it. You can't save it. Work hard, love it, you know, work hard, you know, do the stuff, but, you know, can take breaks. Yeah, it's real life, right? Like, I know you felt like that about your restaurants, right? Like that's, and so like that's, you can't do that. So it's just good advice for us all, you know, on things like that. And it was just, I'm going to try to go to Trinity on one of the weekends where I'm not here, and just like that's just.
I know, it sounded a little funny.
Incognito?
Yeah, you know, like that's, well, you know what I mean. I know it like that. It just sounded funny. But it's, I know they feel alone in all of this stuff, and so just kind of know that we're all with them. They don't have a pastor right now, and so like that. But so us, so there are 6 churches in our circuit. 3 of them have pastors. And so like that, there's 3 that are banking right now. And so that's.
Is that coming up there as well?
Do what?
Is that Scott coming up there?
No, well, not during the 7 weeks. Not during the 7 weeks. He has not been covering there. He has been covering in Vera. And so, I don't know who they're going to get in. I don't know. They the last 2 weeks, Ed has been there. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I know it was Ray Huddle for a while. Chris Coleman was there. He took a call also in December. But, and Chris did a good job up there. But I just want to let you guys know that. It's just talking to them, there's just sadness, you know, with that whole situation. And so I just, you know, like, it's just continue to pray for that church. Continue to pray for that church. There were a lot of people at that funeral though. There was, I don't know, probably 120 people at the funeral. Yeah, so like that's, local pastor wife funeral, you know, like that's, I mean, that's, you can imagine, right? So, and they were also pretty involved in community aspects, so a lot of different people from around there. All right, so we will start this again in Revelation. We ended in Revelation chapter 2, verse 11. What I would like to do is read chapter 2 again, and we'll start off with chapter 2, verse 12, talking about it. And then we'll go on through there. I imagine we'll make it through 3, but we'll see. All right, so let me make sure that I got all my ducks in a row. All right, there we go. Let me go back to Zoom. And I don't know how funny that was, Midge. I don't get it. And we will begin. All right. So.
To the angel of the church of Ephesus write, these things says he who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, who walks in the midst of the 7 golden lampstands. I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil. And you have tested those who say they are apostles and are not, and have found them liars. And you have persevered, and have patience, and have labored for my name's sake, and have not become weary. Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love. Remember therefore, from where you have fallen, repent, and do the first works, or else I will come to you quickly and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. But this you have, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. And to the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things says the first and the last, who was dead and came to life. I know your works, tribulation and poverty, but you are rich, and I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes shall not be hurt by the second death. And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, these things says he who has the sharp two-edged sword. I know your works and where you dwell, where Satan's throne is, and you hold fast to my name, and did not deny my faith even in the days in which Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was killed among you, where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you, because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality. Thus you also have those who hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which thing I hate. Repent, or else I will come to you quickly, and will fight against them with the sword of my mouth. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna to eat, and I will give him a white stone, and on the stone a new name, written which no one knows except him who receives it. And to the angel of the church in Thyatira write, these things says the Son of God, who has eyes like a flame of fire, and his feet like fine brass. I know your works, love, service, faith, and your patience. And as for your works, the last are more than the first. Nevertheless, I have a few things against you, because you allow that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, to teach and seduce my servants to commit sexual immorality and eat things sacrificed to idols. And I gave her time to repent of her sexual immorality, and she did not repent. Indeed, I will cast her into a sickbed, and those who commit adultery with her into great tribulation, unless they repent of their deeds. I will kill her children with death, and all the churches shall know that I am he who searches the minds and hearts, and I will give to each one of you according to your works. Now to you I say, and to the rest in Thyatira, as many as do not have this doctrine, who have not known the depths of Satan, as they say, I will put on you no other burden, but hold fast what you have till I come. And he who overcomes and keeps my works until the end, to him I will give power over the nations. He shall rule them with a rod of iron. They shall be dashed to pieces like the potter's vessels, as I also have received from my Father, and I will give him the morning star. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Okay. All right, so we're starting in chapter 2, verse 12. When that church, last week we talked about the previous churches and all those things. The one thing I'm going to say at the beginning of this, do you get a sense that he's writing to specific churches, or is he writing to ideas that find their ways into churches? Like the ideas, right? Yeah. Like, what do you guys, do you agree with Pam on that, or what do you think? Like, fight, like all that stuff. I agree with Pam, but you can disagree.
I agree with it.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I think so too, and I think that helps us see that, because it's, when I was younger and people would talk about these things, they were like, oh, no, that was what that specific church was dealing with. Maybe, but it seems like he's kind of talking about what we might call the 7 deadly, or 12 deadly sins, 7 deadly sins, whatever they are. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's 3 days. Like that. That's, except after 3 days, I go into the tomb. And so but yeah, so like, it's kind of these general like ideas that each one is kind of dealing with, because I think we're kind of meant to see ourselves in some of these. That some of us in our Christian communities, I probably deal with different parts of this, but I think that that we can find ourselves in some of these, if not all of these type of thing. And I think that's kind of the idea. It's almost like he's starting off this book with a confession of sins type of thing. And
Did you find it interesting that he always said something good about those churches before he
yeah,
brought up their faults?
Yeah.
He wasn't just picking on them.
who was that? The way you put that, I was talking to someone. Who was I talking to? I can't remember what it was, but there was like, yeah. So this, it actually, well, in the LCMS, we're dealing with a weird issue coming up into election season right now. It has to do with the seminaries and all that stuff. And it's so easy when we are dealing with one another in our national politics and our local and all that stuff. It's so easy to think that the righteous spot is like, oh, this is where I stand. It's easy, everything else aside from this. And when I was hearing someone talk about it at the pastors' conferences that I went to on Tuesday, that the guy was talking about was leaving it complicated as he was talking about it. And I think that's actually really good. It was hitting a middle ground because it's so easy for us to act like Satan and accuse other people of being evil and all that stuff, right? What we're trying to do is trying to do things. And so I think that's what Gloria's talking about, is they talk about good and bad going on.
Very judgmental. I know I am.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's good and bad and all of this stuff. And I think that's a good observation. It's a good observation. So that what my Bible has labeled as the compromising church. Oh, Ed.
That's just the accepted best way to criticize or fire someone in a business.
Oh.
Tell them how good they are, and then say, "I'm sorry, you're fired."
That's yeah. But like that's that yeah. So so Ed sees John here is firing all the churches.
Effectively telling them, I'm going to criticize you, but first I'm going to tell you how
We're going to
good
sweeten it a little bit.
you're doing. Your employee. In this way.
So what this first church here? What is this? Pergamos? What's Pergamum? Oh, yeah, Pergamum. Yeah, Pergamum. It's the King James has an os at the end of it. So what's going on with them? What are their issues? They're bad people, huh? like the. So like the doctrine of Balaam. So what is Balaam? What is Balaam? What? But like that's So what is, yeah, what is, let's see, let's look at this.
Balaam advised the Midianite women how to lead the Israelites astray.
Okay. So that's leading the Israelites astray. So it's another one of these.
Prototype of corrupt teacher.
Okay. Idol worshiping. So like you're going after all these other things. To Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel. So he's talking about all these things. And it's basically, it seems like that they're doing all this good stuff there, but they're also, taking part in sexual immortality, eating the food sacrificed to idols, which the food sacrificed to idols, it would be, I don't know, it's like you could get cooked food at these places, and they were these things. Now, remember what Paul said about that? That like it's like it kind of depends on who you're around, type of thing. Like Paul talked about some of that stuff too. But I think John is really like talking about, it's like, hey, stay away from this stuff. It's unhelpful. Like it's just taking you over there. And then he talks about the Nicolaitans. Does anyone have any wisdom on what the Nicolaitans were and all that stuff?
About the last week. Verse earlier, in the Church of Ephesus.
Yeah. And they,
They're a heretical sect within the church that had worked out a compromise with pagan society. They apparently taught that spiritual liberty is a sufficient way to practice idolatry and immorality.
okay. So yeah, so like that's so that they're, it's like, oh, you're completely free to live whatever life you want. It's the kind of classic argument of like, well, like because I'm free now and all this stuff, I can just do whatever sin I want, type of thing. So all right, so
But at some level, it's more than that. It's saying that you do what you want and I'll do what I want. And then that acceptance of their freedom to do that and my freedom to do this means that there's no boundaries.
yeah, like,
Leading yourself astray as much as.
and you're kind of just living individual too. Like you're not really living together in any of that stuff. So in verse 17, there's a pattern that we see this in how he ends each one of these church things. He's like, whoever has ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, right, I will give some of the hidden manna to eat. What do you think he's referencing to hidden manna? Is that what it is in the other English translations? Hidden manna. Okay. What do you think he's talking about with hidden manna? What's he talking about there? What? Could be communion. Like that's if we actually go off our talking about being like living together, that it's not everyone's kind of doing just whatever they want, which is a very individualistic life. That is like kind of anti-Christian, individualistic life. Then that kind of communion there. But what's the direct language? Like where do we see manna? And it's Exodus. Yeah. The manna kind of, and that when is he referencing what manna was? That they're like, we've got nothing to eat, and they were daily given their manna to eat, type of thing, and it's like, you guys are worried, so like I don't know, but
But it's also a contrast to what the unclean food that the Balaamites were eating. People who followed Paul were eating food sacrificed to idols and committing sexual immorality. They were eating this food, and he's going to give them essentially heavenly food.
yeah.
Food from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Hidden manna.
Yeah. So like that's good. So they have all this this bad food that they're eating sacrificed to idols, but God will give them what they need. Type of thing.
Well, and in my footnote here, it says that Jewish tradition held that manna would again be given to the faithful at the Messiah's appearance during the final days.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So like that, so you have that Jesus will give them what they need. And we have that word overcome. And what are they to overcome? What are they overcoming? Like this, I think is a big idea that's going on here. We were hinting at it last week, and we're going to hint stronger at it as we come to the close of this section. Does anyone have any ideas? What are they overcoming? Because he's telling each church to overcome something.
Their sinful ways, their
Sinful way. What is the sinful ways? What
a lot of
what
things
is-
he's mentioning here.
So what? Remember, we got to go back
They're
to,
losing their separation.
they're losing their separation. Yeah. See, I think,
Marrying into those other countries that they were in with, and they lost their spiritual separation.
Yeah.
And man is more spiritual.
yeah. So I think one of my big thesis, and I think it's throughout Revelation, but it's also throughout the scriptures, is this view of Babylon. What is Babylon, right? And the scriptures, there's always been Babylons, right? So Egypt was a Babylon. It's interesting, we're talking about manna. Egypt was a Babylon. Babylon was a Babylon, but you could argue maybe the Philistines at one point, the Assyrians, Rome is definitely viewed as a Babylon. I think whatever the biggest, most powerful, country is definitely a Babylon, going on right there. And so like he's going over there, and I think the overcoming is are you not just becoming one with the Babylon, which is why we read Daniel before, because Daniel lived in the midst and served Babylon, but never became Babylon, right? And my view of the exile of the Israelites when they were overcome by Babylon and taken into exile and all that stuff is that the view is that God said, because they kept on wanting to get greater and greater and more powerful and all these things, and God is finally like, well, if you guys just want to be Babylon so bad, then just be Babylon, and allowed them to be overtaken by it, right? And that's where I get my phrase, careful that you get what you wish for. You just might get it, right? Like that's, you're careful, you might get what you want. And it's kind of like the dog that catches the squirrel. Don't know what it's like, I didn't know. I don't know what to do now. Like that. So it's, so careful what you wish for, you just might get it. So I think the overcome is that Babylon, and I think that makes sense as you continue to look through these, because I think you're seeing these different traits of Babylon in each of these churches. Like that's going in there. All right. So the next one, 18 through, I guess, is it the end? Okay, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
What's the white stone?
the white stone.
White stone, the new name written on the stone.
It says it's like a token of an invitation to a carving.
Okay. So like a Roman idea, like that's,
Well, mine says in ancient world, special pebbles were sometimes used as admission tickets to banquets.
yeah,
Okay.
Does that make sense?
yeah. So,
And also in Greek law, it says here that in the court, the white stone or pebble was a vote for acquittal. Here it symbolizes Christ's verdict of not guilty to all belief.
so which,
And I agree.
okay, is that that? And then yours is the Lutheran? Okay, like that's,
But it's an ESV.
which study Bible do you have, Nancy?
There's a similar.
Did she say
Do I have?
You just read
It's
that? Yeah, you have the Lutheran Study Bible.
It's the Lutheran Study Bible.
Okay, all right.
It's the true Bible,
Just the
the
truth.
Lutheran.
That's, so we're saying things like that is why you get along with this church, Nancy. Like that. Right, like this. Okay. So, so I think you kind of see what's going on with that white stone, whether it being like acquittal or like a special, like invitation to a party or something like that. You can kind of see that there's this idea that's going on, from over there. So that's a good question. Okay, let's go on. So what's going on with this next church? The heading in my Bible says the corrupt church. So what? And so what does your heading say about this one? What's the name of this one?
Church of Thyatira.
Thyatira. There it is. Thyatira. The message to Thyatira. So what is their issue?
Hmm?
Well, what's their, to quote the good, what's their good?
The angel of the church.
What do they do that's good?
Mhm.
17.
Love and faith.
Faith, love, service, patience, endurance.
They have good works. Yeah, love, service, patience.
Seem to get better with time.
Yeah, like they're doing good, but like, what's their problem? Jezebel. You Jezebel? Like that. But like that's, so what are they, like, what's going on? What's going on? What do you think their issue is? Where do we see the Babylon here? Where do we see, what are they doing?
Compromising values.
Compromising values?
What's this here?
Yeah. Like that's you have this lady who he's calling Jezebel, who's teaching, seduce the servants to commit sexual immorality and eat things sacrificed to idols. It kind of sounds like they're living in the way of the Romans again, with the baths and all that stuff. I mean, they have, who's the Roman god of like the fertility? Is that a Roman god? All that stuff. Yeah, like that. So, because I always get my Greek ones and my Roman ones mixed up, and so like so that they kind of do all those things. Now there was one of these phrases that
They tolerate.
what?
They tolerate.
They tolerate. They tolerate what?
They tolerate the woman Jezebel. But I have against you that you tolerate the woman Jezebel. 20.
Yeah, the King James has allow.
This is tolerate.
Okay, let's see here.
One I'm reading, says tolerate all.
Yeah. So tolerate is what ESV says. Let's look at the crazy translation. The little purple one. This is a translation by a man named Scott McKnight. And he was unimpressed with what the English translation's done, so he did his own. And the one thing about this translation that makes it hard to read is he doesn't transliterate any of the names. So like they're just in so it's Jezebel, like that's, so, so let's see here. But I have against you that you release the woman Jezebel, the one saying of herself a prophet and teaches and deceives my slaves to commit sexual immorality and to eat what is presented to demons. So that's how he translates that.
Not too far.
No, it's not too far. So like that. So I gave her time that she might convert, but she did not want to convert from her sexual immorality. So what do you think's going on? What do you think's going on?
Interesting one. The message
Yeah.
says, I gave her a chance to change her ways, but she has no intention of giving up her career in the God business.
In the God business. So like that's,
Beware false prophets.
beware of false prophets. Yeah. Like that's, like, a lot of times you can tell these false prophets because it's all in it for themselves, you know? And you know, we still see this today. Someone can start off as someone good and then change too, you know? Like that's what makes, you know, all this stuff so difficult. I don't think the point of all of this is to point fingers at someone else. You know, I think the point of all of this stuff is to realize that the three others, you know, are pointing at yourself. Like that's, like over there, you're shaking your head.
I perceive we're dancing around an important thing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I raised this with Vance yesterday in his study group. My question rhetorically was, is grace the essence of the Lord's wrath? And here, the vengeance is extreme.
Okay.
And I you know.
So how do they get the vengeance though? I would say that's at the end of verse 23.
I'm not talking about this particular, I'm talking the vengeance that threads throughout this. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to.
I think it's the same as 23 though.
Mhm.
So let's reach in. No.
You repeatedly say it's backward and it's beautiful. Is this backward and beautiful?
The redemptive part is. But why does the bad come in? Who's causing the bad?
Satan.
Satan?
See what it says? Comments in here, it says Satan couldn't keep the Christians out of the world, so Satan came into the church.
Because remember what they're overcoming. What were they overcoming again? Like Babylon, right? Yeah.
They couldn't separate.
Yeah. So let's read 23. I think you're beginning to see what this book of Revelation is all about. It's like, I will kill her children with death, and all the churches shall know that I am he who searches the minds and hearts. That's pretty rough. But then he explains it. And I will give to each one of you according to your works. Like, I think he's saying there, like, hey, you're doing this to yourself.
Allowing it to happen.
You're doing it to yourself. Like that's.
I can go on and read 24.
Yeah, go ahead.
And now I say to the rest of you in Thyatira, who do not hold to her teaching and have not learned Satan's so-called deep secrets, I will not impose any other burden on you.
Okay.
So he's very specific in looking at the deeds of those who've done something wrong.
So like, but who caused the deeds of the bad stuff going on? Satan.
Satan is what it says.
Well, yeah, Satan, but
Jezebel.
Jezebel. But like, I think he's saying there. Yeah, I think he's saying there. Like, I give you each to your own work, each to your own works. I think that's the point. Like, I think he's saying all this stuff. He's like all this. Yeah, I'm giving you over to all the things that you wanted. It's the same way I view them going into Babylon. Like if you wanted to be it so bad, then I'm just fine, go.
But this is not quid. This is vengeful quid pro quo.
Okay.
This is.
What do you mean by that?
This is not. Be careful what you wish for. This is what I'm doing to you because you did wish for it, and it's not nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's severe. It's. Mm-hmm. From my wooky eyes, the vengeance just gets more and more intense. Mm-hmm. And, you have to pluck out the little, but it's really only this, it's really only that justifies this vengeance. I'm going to put her in a sick bed, I'm going to kill her kids. And what am I to learn from this?
I think what he's saying is, again, as Pastor said, if you want Babylon, in the end, I will give it to you. And this is what it's like. It's death, it's horror, it's the worst thing you can imagine. I got it beat.
So, let's talk about today and what's going on. If someone drinks too much at the Chili's bar, and they get in a car, and they drive home, and they hit somebody else, whose fault's that?
Yes. They knew what they were doing. They didn't care.
It's the auto manufacturer.
It's the auto manufacturer, right? Like that's, so you think about that, like that's, if yeah, can you blame it on the beer? Like, oh,
Whoever brewed that beer, gotta go to jail.
I'm reminded, some of you may remember Flip Wilson, The Devil Made Me, Geraldine.
yeah. Well, and so that idea right there, the devil made me do it, I think is how a lot of people view this stuff. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think it's saying something that we all intuitively know. That it's like, yeah, I've lived a hard life, or I've done something that isn't good. I've lived a style of life that isn't good. And what Revelation calls it, what the Bible calls it, is that living that Babylon lifestyle. Jesus is all about this too, and it leads to nothing but death and destruction. That's why we were talking about, like, if you live a life where you're only out for yourself, it's a life of death and destruction. Like it just is.
That's it, but I'm not.
Killing of the children comes in, it's just, because the way it reads here, and I think a lot of people have a problem with that, you're seeing God saying, I'm gonna kill your kids, but.
I hear you say that, but for me, and Mick, don't cover your ears, you don't want to hear this. There's also great hope in this.
Well, yeah, of course.
Because he
You're
follows
saying you
on.
need to straighten out, or there's gonna be more problems, like if, her actions maybe affect her kids.
But it also says if we aren't living that, if we stay out of that, if we overcome that temptation, then we're fine.
Even if we've done something, repent. Not like, oh, I did it, well, I guess I'll just keep doing it.
But then how does the threat come about if you don't straighten out? If you're Jezebel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you've chosen to live the Babylonian lifestyle.
And then who affects her children and her actions
Yeah.
affect them.
Mm-hmm.
So her sin is visited upon her children.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Like that's how many of you have done any amount of therapy because of the sins of your parents brought upon you?
Mm-hmm.
Should have.
Yeah. Should have. Yeah. Or your own children that you have done. I was trying to be nice, but that's
Try hard.
Yeah, try harder. But that's it's all this stuff that I think we intuitively know, but we don't allow ourselves to look at it through the lens here, because I think that's what John is saying. He's like, you're like, this spirit of Jezebel here is causing all of this over there. And John is saying, like, God is like, I am putting you in this wrath, just like God put Israel in the wrath of being overtaken by Babylon. But there's also this other look where it looks like, well, I gave you to what you were doing to yourself. I finally relented. Like that's, and it's a hard thing. Like I get it. It's a hard thing, and that's why I'm letting all this discussion go through it. Now you were talking about. Oh yeah, Nancy, go ahead.
Isn't it for us today that we have to be aware that we're sinful, be aware of the things that we're doing wrong, and then repent?
Yeah.
And because of Christ, we're forgiven.
And it's forgiven, and you know, I really saw this in that Matthew gospel that we went through over there, that Matthew keeps it so people-centric, and that's the point, are these other people. And what I think can happen inside of churches, and you know, I don't know if he's saying this specifically, but I think if we were writing one for today, it's like, I think Jesus complained about this with the Pharisees, like, you use your religion to walk over people. You devour widows' homes, you know? You do all these things to kill and destroy, all in the name of God. You know, you do all these things, and I will eat you up. Like, it's, I think my favorite example is that church in Seattle, like Mars Hill in Seattle, church, 20-something thousand people a weekend, and like it mounted, and there's all this corruption and bad underneath it, and it mounted and mounted, and within 6 months, that the church of 20-something thousand didn't exist anymore. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the Christian term, it's called deconstructing your faith, and all these things. Us in the pastoral community think a lot of that movement was because of what happened to that church, because that church was selling confidence. If you just live this way, then Jesus will be blessing you, and like all that stuff. And people believed it wholeheartedly. Like, they had 20-something thousand people in person. That's not how many people were watching online, you know? And everyone believed it. And then all of a sudden, this corruption scandal came about. And the tip of the iceberg, which brought it all in, was they were doing African missions, and they took the money for the African missions and bought a bunch of the pastor's books, so the pastor's books would end up on the New York Times bestseller list. You know? And then that was like the chink in the armor, and it went down, and you found there was all these patterns of abuse and all this stuff all the way through, and it all collapsed. And so, because the ministry wasn't built on people, it was built on all these other things, you know? And the church was trying to become this massive thing, using people, you know, to get massive, and they were not overcoming Babylon. And that's what the challenge is, because we find ourselves as Babylon all the time. I know that I have traits in myself which are completely unhelpful. I know, right? I know, everyone's surprised.
Now you tell us.
Mm-hmm. And what destruction do I wrought because I live that way?
Oh, you let me in.
I know. Like, let's see, what's this one called? What's this one called? The corrupt church, right? Like that's the previous one was the compromising church. That's what Nick was talking about there, right? But that's and I think that's kind of what we're talking about all of here, is that we're getting into this apocalyptic literature, and it's these. And there's going to be all this Roman imagery, and there's going to be all this stuff. And I think sometimes we get so worried about the Satan out there that we worry about, that we completely become blind to what's going on here. And I think this is designed for us to open our eyes to what's going on here. It's like, how am I allowing Babylon? You know, how am I empowering Babylon? You know, for my own perceived goals and wants and stuff like that. And then doing the absolute worst is saying it's righteousness. You know? And willing to crucify people because they went against it or said something against it. Mm-hmm. You know? Like you see that all the time. It's a story of Jesus in Rome. Rome was a Babylon, right? Like and he was talking against it, and they killed him. You know, like that's, and so like you see all these things and so he who overcomes, you know, all those things. So what we're going to end up seeing, and we're not going to have time to go on to chapter 3, which is a little disappointing. But we're going to see as we continue going through this book here is that what was the imagery of Jesus winning? What's the first? Do you remember from that video, the explainer video? What was it talks about like this huge battle coming up, right? And all this stuff is coming, and all of a sudden there's just no talk of a battle, and Jesus looks like a slain lamb. You know, that's the backwards beautiful there. It's not Babylon. God doesn't defeat in the ways of Babylon. You know, we may fall to Babylon, but God doesn't defeat Babylon with the strength of Babylon. Despite what you hear Christians talking about today, there's a set, you know, we all see them, they're in the public square, they're talking about making God powerful and all these things and all that stuff. Like that's just imagery of Babylon. Don't worship that false image. Like the image that Revelation gives us as we're coming here is one of the lamb that was slain. Then there's that other, at the very end, there's this huge battle that we're going to talk about, and like all this stuff, and then it talks about Jesus coming in on his white horse, but he's already got blood on him. Like that's not how kings ride into battle. You know? Like that's he's already won because he died. Jesus is overcoming Babylon. Like this is the image. This is a consistent image all the way through here. Like that's over there. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but like this is what we're getting into with this thing. And what I don't like of how Revelation is often interpreted is they're trying to make God and Jesus into Babylon. They're trying to make him into this God of power like Zeus that can do, you know, like all this stuff. And it's not. It's not. Anyway, Lee wants to say something really bad, I can tell.
Babylon is death,
I think so.
and Jesus conquered death.
Yeah.
It's over.
Babylon's the darkness, the pre-creative forest. Like all this stuff comes from the sea in one of the images. It all comes from the sea. That talks about this pre-created order. It's coming from the midst of all of that, you know. It's all this scary stuff, but the fact that any of us could drive home at 12:05 and get hit by a drunk driver that had too much to drink at Chili's at 11 o'clock in the morning, you know, like that's not good. It's scary, and yet all that scary stuff is talked about right here too. It's life, and we understand it. It's life all around us, right?
I have a question, because somebody in my community said, why doesn't God come and fix this? I think he wants it to be like utopia now.
Yeah.
Wants it to be heaven now. I mean, it's like, you know, that's quite a question.
It is quite a question. Why doesn't God just come and fix all of this?
Can be worse.
Yeah, like it's I have such an odd answer for this. It's a mystery. Yeah, it's a mystery. It's I don't know how. I don't know how satisfying that would be.
It speaks,
Doesn't God
volumes.
give us,
It speaks volumes that you're trying to find the words.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy.
No, it's not an easy answer.
And unfortunately, there are those who will come up with the easy response.
God's time isn't our time.
That's good.
it says in the Bible that God's one day might be like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like one day.
I have an answer.
Our time is not his time.
Yeah. Nancy, you were about to, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, just,
Everything is.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah, Nancy, go ahead.
well, God gives us, he allows us choices. He doesn't come in and say you have to do it this way. He wants us to do things the right way, but he lets us make choices. And as a result of those choices, there's all kinds of horrible things happening in the world. Not that I chose that, but somewhere along the line, someone chose. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Adam and Eve chose.
yeah, Adam and Eve chose, like, so
The result is all these bad things that are happening in the world. And yes, God could come in and say no, but he's given us choices. I don't know. It's hard to explain. In my mind, I kind of understand.
So here's my answer. All right. I have an answer. It's super simple. Like all that stuff. And out of everyone in this room, Gloria probably remembers this. And I'm pretty sure you do. Maybe Diane and Lee probably remembers this. I think it was 2018. And Cassie read the end of Revelation. Do you guys remember that? Yeah. Dude, like that's, you guys all remember that? I can say one thing, and you guys remember that day. Because Cassie's life has been trashed. A bunch of it. Some of it by her own doing, some of it by her parents and that family, and all that stuff. Yeah. A boyfriend, like all that stuff. Cassie's boyfriend tried to kill her. For those of you who don't know. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's not even the deep stuff. And she read the end of Revelation and broke down in front of everyone. Like, I can't even get through it talking about it. And I think it was because the question that we're asking, why doesn't he just fix it? I think the wiping every tear from their eyes is that, you know, of all of that. And you got to see a picture of that in front, you know, of someone that was able to know that even in the midst of all the scary stuff and not knowing what's going on in life, that it's going to be okay. Like, and I think that's kind of the point of this whole thing. And that may be unsatisfying that you just fix it and all of that stuff. And I think, but it's like just wiping every tear from their eye and bringing wholeness and being able to overcome for it, you know, I think is the image. I don't know, does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's just like part of it is maybe, you know, keeping the faith, you know, just, you know, we can't say, oh, God, fix this for me and I want it right now.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Yeah.
It's for us to learn faith, for us to learn suffering.
Yeah. I think
Like school here for us to learn.
Yeah.
Before we go on to the next life.
Yeah. I don't know. And some of you probably remember the sermon a couple years ago in the Forgiving Challenge when Jesus appeared before the disciples and he still had all the scars. And I'm like, why is the resurrected body of Jesus, why does it have scars? And that really caused me to have a little bit of a breakdown for a little bit, because I was like, yeah, because everything's supposed to be utopia and perfect. But the truth of the matter is do I want my life without the scars? You know, like, and that's the question that I was asking, because think about what you were like when you don't have any of the scars. You're like just this happy-go-lucky blob the whole time.
Now you are.
Do I regret any of the time? Do I want to live through the pain that I've had to live through in the past? No. Do I regret any of it? It's all made me who I am now. You know? Like that's, maybe I regret some of the decisions I made in that. But all of that is, and man, for me to forget some of that, but imagine what I could do is still having those scars, but be able to completely forgive. You know? And I think is kind of where we're going. Not living that life of Babylon, but living that life of the true Christ. Not living, to quote Revelation, the Antichrist, which is only in search of power, you know, but serving like this other thing. And I think that's where we're getting in this book. And I don't know, I feel like I've been preaching at you, but like but you guys are going to have it for like a while. So like I had to get some of it. Anyone else want to say anything as we kind of close for today? And only talk about the latter half of chapter 2. Like that's great. Anything else?
I think sometimes those scars you're talking about,
Yeah.
at least for me, it brings me closer to God. When I'm struggling or things aren't going right in my life, you know,
Yeah.
I don't try to take it all on myself. I try to ask God to help me through it all. It brings me closer to God, to Christ.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're suffering.
Yeah.
That's just
So I think that's good. I think it's good. So I'm hearing from you guys that this is an old joke, but like that our tagline for Grace should be Grace Lutheran Church, come suffer with us, right? Over.
then rejoice with us too,
Yeah.
right?
What did you say, Nancy?
Rejoice with us too.
Yeah, rejoice with us too. Rejoice and suffer with us. And so like that's good. That's good. So for everyone that's watching this pre-recorded on YouTube, thanks for joining us today. All right, let me stop the recording.